All right, so we are now recording. If you have any questions, you can go and put them in the chat. I'm going to try and make this a pretty short webinar. We're going to the purpose of this is to do an overview of MathShare. We've got a number of different webinars that are coming up that I'll be emailing out about them. If you ever have requests for different topics, let me know. As we're getting more and more teachers and educators signing up, we're getting a lot more feedback from people, and that's resulting in a lot more ideas and ways that other people are using MathShare, and that is fantastic. We exploded last week when our sister Bookshare emailed everybody out about MathShare, and so we quickly added on about 3,000 new educators that have signed up, and that's fantastic. And I was just at my daughter's school talking to her OT, and she was like, yeah, MathShare, I got an email about that the other day and just signed up. I was like, all right. So my background, my name is Matt Nupin. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt Nupin. I'll put up a thing about it. The email also that you probably received from me from MathShare also goes directly to me as well. I taught science for 12 years. I live in Minnesota. And I connected with Benetech through accessibility stuff, obviously, but about 3D printing learning aids, because I've always taught at alternative schools. And while most of my students didn't have like an IEP or diagnosed disability, they've all missed school. They've been kicked out or dropped out of their home schools for a variety of reasons. And a lot of the times there were learning disabilities or differences that were kind of like at the root of some of those things. And so I've always had like this need to always find new things. Like, how am I going to connect with my students? How am I going to help them better understand the material in different ways? And that's really what we do a lot of at Benetech. And so I was very fortunate to be able to now start working at Benetech as one of the product managers. So I'm in charge of MathShare and another product called ImageShare, which is a free repository of accessible media. And another thing too for me is, as much as I love building accessible edtech stuff, there's also kind of like what's the right word? I'm totally blanking on the word now. Well, selfish. It was more of like not really selfish, but there's more of like the selfish angle for it. So I have a child with disability. She was a walker for getting around. She's nonverbal. But like the most social, happy kid you'll probably ever meet, and loves to make friends and just fantastic. But tools like MathShare and Bookshare and ImageShare are going to be fantastic. I've already been talking with her teachers at our elementary school about using tactiles and different learning aids and ImageShare. And so it's been really fantastic now to also be developing and building tools that will help all kids learn better and be more effective learners and be more confident in their learning, but also it's going to be helping my own kid. Well, I've got 2 kids, but the typical kid, he's still going to benefit from these things. The other kid will really benefit from things. It won't be accessible otherwise, a lot of ways. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so the really quick overview: MathShare is a free tool being made by Benetech. It does not have any kind of like limitations like Bookshare, like, so you don't have to meet different criteria or disabilities to use it. It's 100% free for teachers and educators and students. Anyone can use it, and really my goal, or a whole goal with it, is for MathShare to be an inclusive learning tool. We have a standalone version, but our end goal is to have MathShare built into as many different tools as possible as we're kind of going along. So even though this is standalone, we want MathShare to be built into all the different LMSs, all the different education tools that you use in which students need to do math, because the vast majority of math tools are not accessible. And it's difficult making things accessible. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be done, but it is difficult. And so our goal is to help all these other companies and tools bring math accessibility into their services so that all the students can be using the same tool together and be more independent and be more confident in their math. So all of you have already signed up. I'm going to go through the process anyways here. So we're going to sign in. You can continue without sign up. What I noticed that was being a little bit buggy, so we're going to fix that. But you can sign in with Google or with Microsoft. But continuing without sign in totally works. The only difference there is that when you get to your dashboard, there will be none of your problem sets that you created will show up, or because it won't be saving there. They still save, but you have to save the links separately someplace else. They just won't show up in your dashboard because we don't know who you are. With Google and Microsoft signing, because those are kind of the most popular ones within education. So I'm going to go ahead and sign up my Google account here. And then here are the different problem sets that I've created. So I can now see those now that I've signed in. Down here, we have some pre-made sets. A lot of these came from like Open Up Resources, their math curriculum, and from a couple of different teachers. We're going to be launching a sharing library in a little bit. That will be in our December newsletter. That's going to come out. But I'm going to go ahead and just create a new problem set. So I'm going to select new problem set. Now, MathShare has been set up and been tested with screen readers. We tested it with NVDA and VoiceOver. We're working with some fantastic developers who are also blind and helping us really kind of refine this whole process so that not only is it, right, there's the difference between is it accessible with screen readers versus is it usable with screen readers? And we want MathShare to be as user-friendly and as intuitive as possible for screen reader users. So now that we're creating a new problem set, you can, as the educator, you can select what math tool palettes are going to be available. Now we've changed that, we've selected different colors, and we've made this option so you can kind of limit them based on feedback that we received from teachers last year of there's kind of overwhelming having all these tools. And we have some more updates coming too, so keep that feedback coming. But for this purpose, we won't need geometry. So I'm going to unselect that, and I'm now going to select next. And now we're on our problem set page. MathShare works around sets of problems so that you share a link for your set out to students, and they're able to work through all those math problems and then share that link back to it. I'm going to start off by renaming our problem set. So I'm just going to call this one Tuesday Morning. Is that the name of the book with the flying frogs? Is it Tuesdays? I think it's Tuesday Morning. I think that's what it is. Like the frogs start flying off in the lily pads. I think that's what it is. I'll drink some more coffee. Okay, so we've renamed our problem set. The More Options button here allows you to duplicate the problem set, to share it on Twitter, and then also to view this as a student. So what you can do too is if you want to share this with other teachers, you can just simply copy that link or copy the share on Twitter one and email that out to other educators, and they can now duplicate your problem sets and start using them with students too. So I'm going to select Add New Problem. And this is now where we're going to start kind of adding them as we go along. So this first I'm just going to do is will be like 4x plus 10 is equal to 8. I don't know. And then over here, I'm going to give some instructions for it. So I'm going to say solve for x. And I'm going to select add problem. And so now we've added it up here in our list, and we can continue adding problems. As we're doing this, I want to highlight a couple things down here. So MathShare, if you use LaTeX at all, you can copy and paste LaTeX into the MathShare editor, and it will convert that into like regular readable math. If you don't know what LaTeX is, don't worry about it. Down here, all of the different buttons and math tools that we have keyboard combinations. So if you move your mouse over it, you can see what those are. We have a full list in the Accessibility Help Center also of what the different keyboard combinations are. You can also click on them. So let's say if I wanted to do like a fraction here, so I can tap on the fraction. So I could say 1 tab 2 for 1/2. Another thing that we could do is we could do 9 and then /2 also works. Now I want to, and I'm going to use mouse arrow over or keyboard, it's a right arrow, and then I'm going to say like x plus 20 or 10 is equal to y. They solve for x. I'm going to go ahead and add the problem there. Now another thing we can do is you can use a couple of different things that are in here. So we've got the different operators. One of them that I kind of like, and I did a different video about, is using parentheses as kind of a placeholder. So especially if you're working with younger students or students that are newer to algebra, instead of using a variable like x, which is kind of an odd thing to learners, you can put in these parentheses as kind of like a space holder. So let's say I'm going to have like 2 times And for that, I did Shift and 8. So it did like little like star. And so that automatically does times. And now I'm going to put in is I'm going to select parentheses. And I'm going to use the right arrow. And I'm going to say is equals to 8. And now I'm over here. I'm going to use the dictate button instead. Our tool, and students have this as well. This math editor is what students use also. I'm going to say fill in the missing number. And I'm going to now add that problem. And what I like about parentheses is that it gives you that little square with a dotted line around it. So this is a really much easier way to do this. And the last one we're going to have is going to be something about trains. So like train. Oh, no, I want to do text. Or why isn't that working here? 3 miles per hour is train 1. 1, and then 6 miles per hour is train 2, which is faster, something like that, right? But the purpose of this one is I wanted to show you about how it is that you can also put text in here. Now, if you have a space between them, right? So if I start typing this, if I don't have a space there and I started typing things here, well, master is a little bit smarter than that here, right? So if I say like X, then it knows that it's going to be an X. But if I put a space and then an X, now it's going to be treated as text as we're going along. But I'm just going to go ahead and add that problem in and now select done. So we have our different problems here. It automatically numbers them 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to, you can rearrange them by clicking and dragging them around. So if I want that one to be first. Now I'm looking at this and I wanted to add in a picture for this. So I'm going to select the More Options button. And I can now edit the problem or remove the problem. For this one, I'm going to edit the problem. I'm going to select Sketch. And we've added in this drawing tool. We've got a lot of really big plans for the drawing tool. So please keep the feedback coming and the ideas and the requests, because we really want to hear what it is that students and teachers need for this to make it really functional. But what I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and draw like a track, and then I'm going to have like train 1 right there and train 2 right there, and it's going this way and it's going this way. We could add things in. You can load in images and draw the squares. So one student a student requested the drawing sketchpad first because she wanted to be able to draw out little squares, and that was going to help her with the counting. And so that's why we added that in. So I'm now going to update that problem. And you can see now there's a little picture icon. So if we select that, it then opens up the image in a new tab. So we're done with our problem set. We are ready to now assign this out to our students. And we've got 3 different ways that we can do this. If you're using Google Classroom, you can select that and it goes through Google Classroom's whole assignment process. Same thing with Microsoft Teams. If you don't use either of those LMSs, you can then also use MathShare with other LMSs. We've got integration with Canvas coming up. We're looking at Schoology also, but let's say if we're going to assign this out in Schoology, what I would do is you'd select Share Permanent Link. And this link right here is what students can now load up. So I'm going to select Copy. And in a new tab, I'll paste that. And this is what the students are now going to see. So you'll notice that the editing tools are kind of gone there. I can't edit this problem set. But now when I select and I open this up, now we're in the editor that the students use. And so there's a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. So the first one is there's this button of all problems. So students can go back to all of the problems. We've got save. It will auto save for students. We have a little help menu thing here. So if students need some support or they want to look in the help center, we do have the student section there. And then we have the prompt for the question. So which is faster? And there are 2 different trains. And then also the image icon. And for right now, students can select that and it opens it up in that new tab for them. Step 1 has already been set up. So step 1 is the equation and then the instructions and then clear once you get to the next one. So for this one, I'm going to do is, well, no, this is a bad one because that was just a bad question. All right, we're going to go to number 2. Okay, so here we've got 4x plus 10 is equal to 8 is our problem that we're going to solve. So for this one, what I want to do is I'm going to move 10 to both sides. So I'm going to say minus 10, and over here, I'm going to say minus 10 also. And my description is subtract 10 from both sides. So there's some really fun things in MathShare. And when I saw this cross out ability, that kind of blew my mind, got me really excited as a teacher, because it's something I always kind of tell my students to do, of like, make sure you do the extra step of just crossing it out. Because when you go back to your work later, it's really helpful to see what you actually did. So instead of just 10 being gone, like cross it out, like really kind of show that process. And so we made that a little bit easier, of where we've got this option of being able to either calculate things for us automatically or cross them out. So if I cross this out, so I know these two are going to disappear, so I'm just going to select cross out. And over here, 8 minus 10, I can put in -2, but one of the things we added in is this calculate ability, so that students can then select that, and what they'll do is it'll cross it out and then it solves it for them. Now, this is for very basic algebra. It won't do anything with variables. It needs to have just numbers in there. But it's a very helpful kind of time-saving tool for a lot of students, because then what's going to happen is when we click on add step, you can see it keeps those crossouts, and then it cleans up the equation for you. So now we have the 4x, it kept plus, and we'll delete that, and then is equal to -2. And down here, we've got that there. So now we can say divide by 2. So another thing I could do too is I could select that, and I could select the fraction, and then 4. Over here, we could instead do then the /4. We end up getting the same functionality there. And here we could then do the cross out and replace. So for this one, if I tried doing the calculate tool, it'd be like, nope, sorry, it can only be numbers or operators. So instead, what I want to do is this one is going to then become just x. So I'm going to do this cross out and replace as now just x. And then this one, I'm going to also just kind of manually do that of -1/2. And then divide, why am I doing that? I'm just going to do divide both sides by 4. So I should add too, of like, as we're going through this, so even though I taught mostly alternative schools, the last school that I was teaching at was a charter school in the Twin Cities. And the Twin Cities is really neat in Minnesota. We have really large immigrant populations. So we have a really large Hmong population. So Hmong people came from the area of Vietnam. And so during the Vietnam War, a lot of the Hmong community were airlifted to Minnesota as refugees because of the war. And so so we have this huge Hmong population in Minnesota, and we also have this really large Somali population too. And so the last school that I was teaching at for a couple of years was a charter school in the Twin Cities that was primarily just all Somali or East African immigrant families. Some of the students were born here. Other ones were like first generation immigrant families. But because it was like a mix of ESL students and native English speakers, there was still a lot of challenges with typing, right? And so the reason I bring this up is that for my students, language was still a difficult thing. And so trying to figure out how they were going to be typing these things out, that difference between saying it and typing it is tricky. And so being able to have just simply this built-in voice to text, it makes it a lot easier for students, whether they have even if they don't have a disability, this makes it easier for a lot of students because it's so much easier to speak it than it is to type it out. And so for some students, that can be like the make or break thing. Like they could tell you easily what they did, but they can't type it out. It's just not going to happen. And so having this built in is going to really help a lot of students with being able to explain this, because what's fantastic now is when they're done with their problem, this is something that they could then share with their classmates. Or let's say you've got like you've got your small group of students, and they're sharing how they solved these problems. They can share this with their classmates and be able to explain it, and their classmates can see how they went through and solved it. So even if you've got a student that is nonverbal and they used a screen reader to go through and access everything through MathShare, they can still interact and share their work with their classmates, even with typical classmates, because this is now, we're all kind of seeing the same thing. All right, so I'm going to now go ahead and click on finish, and that will save your work and bring you back here. And students can now turn in their work through Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. But for this one, because it's Schoology, we're going to select Share Permanent Link. Students will copy that, and then they're going to paste that into Schoology as their assignment. And this is what you as the teacher would see. So now I can go in here. I'm going to select this one to see their work. the editor toolbar is gone, and now I can actually see what this is. So this is what other students would see. So if I'm going to share this with my classmates or with my small group, this is what I'd be able to see. And so I'm be like, oh, like that's how they solved for it. Like, cool, I get that. So the last thing I was going to go through then is a couple different things. So in the Help Center, we've got, so we have a Help Center here that will open up in a new window. We've got a lot of fantastic tutorials in there. Our web or YouTube channel also has a lot of stuff. This built-in chat system, a lot of you have already started using. Who's that person with a beard? So you can start a conversation with us anytime. I try to get it really quickly, but I don't always. We've been getting a lot of messages, so I've been a little bit behind. You can also search through our Help Center directly in here as well. And then back on here, so you can create new problems and then giving us feedback through this form. You can give us feedback through that form or just simply clicking on our little intercom chat system here and sending us a message through that. And then over in your dashboard, you can then go through, you can duplicate sets from here. We are going to be adding the ability to archive or kind of like hide. So you can still, so it's kind of like deleting it, but you're just hiding it from there. There's a couple of reasons why we do that. Won't go over it now. But so here we've got all of our problems. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is we've added in this personalization setting, and this students have also. So if you select your user icon, this is only if you're signed in. You can then select the font, the line height, and the letter spacing of the text that's going to show up. Now, we didn't add in text size. You can adjust the text size, but we purposely did not add that in as a personalization setting because most users, if they're going to change the text size, they're going to do that through the browser. So I'm just going to increase the text size here on my Mac by pressing Command and plus, and I'm now increasing the text size. And so chances are, if you want the text size larger, you've probably done that in the browser so that other websites are also like that, so that when you come to MathShare, it's automatically using that in a large text size, and we're not overriding that. So that's the reason why we did this. And then I can press Command 0 and just go back to that. So that is our MathShare overview. Our YouTube channel and our Twitter account have a lot of stuff. We have, yes, we got a link to our YouTube channel here by selecting that YouTube icon. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and let's do some questions. And I see we got a lot here. Would there be an audio recording for students with speech impairments? Not right now, but that's a really good point. I actually don't know, Kate, if we have that on our roadmap, but I'm going to put that in because that is a really good point about, yeah, like the speech recognition tool is not always doing a great job with that. So I will add that in as a request. All right, so then we hear of ability to print work, ability to upload problem sets pages from Canvas when. For the printing the work, you can print the screens. One of the things we're going to be adding in later on is the ability to print out your problem set on paper. Now, right now in Google Drive, and I think I've got a link to it in our Help Center, I do have just like a general template, but I want to be able to have the ability so you can print out these problem sets as well, because sometimes technology is an issue, or maybe not all students want to use on the computer or something like that, but so that you don't have to duplicate your work. So you can make a problem set in MathShare and then print that out so you don't have to like make a new copy in Word or Google Docs, something like that. Canvas support is coming this winter. That's our main focus right now through December, is getting this Canvas integration up and running. So end of December, beginning of January is when you'll see that release. How does it work on mobile devices? Kate, you got all the great questions today. So for mobile devices, it's not really compatible with mobile devices at this time. The main reason is the math editor. The math editor does not resize very well. It just simply shrinks down instead. And so it's not mobile, or it's not, screen responsive. Responsive. I can't speak this morning. But that we are going to be doing as a change. It works on iPads also. If you have the iPad in the wider landscape view, but not in the tall, skinny portrait view, which would be the more useful one. The Sketchpad also does not work on touch screens. If you try to use it, just the whole screen moves then. And so we are aware of that. That happens also on laptops like Chromebooks with touch screens too. There will be a recording of this available. I'll be putting this on our YouTube channel. We've got a playlist for webinars. All of our webinars will be going on our playlist there. So definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. I feel, look at me, I'm like a YouTuber now. My kids would be so proud of me. Click subscribe. And tell us your favorite part of this webinar in the comments system. So all of these will be posted there. And let's see here, make sure. If anybody has any other questions. Okay, well, we are close to the end of our time, and I'm actually going to go run over to I'm going to go and click stop recording.